Yes, welcome into Sports Bit Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy, Wednesday, August 17th. Big game breakdown is going to be the Nationals and the Rockies, two struggling pitchers. And we'll get to the Orioles and the Red Sox. That big series continues from Baltimore. Deep dive, more NFL news, training camp news, injuries, suspensions, etc. And the play of the day, bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books coming up. Appreciate you watching. Tell your family, tell your friends. Football is here. Tweet at us any questions at Pauly Howard at Teddy_covers. We are here for you, and let's get this thing going and jump this sucker up to 8, 9, 10,000 views like we had with the NBA Finals. We got to 5,000 once we get into football here, and it is here. But August 27th, the first college game with Cal and Hawaii. This was wild, Teddy. Blue Jays and the Yankees. Let's start with a bad beat, the Yankees. 6-0 in the sixth inning. Pineda cruising. Wait, here comes the rain. They got to go to the bullpen. And the Blue Jays scored 12 unanswered.
That's a rough. There's nothing worse. There really is nothing worse when you have a right side and you're going to cash your ticket and then something like a rain delay comes in and changes it all up. That's just bad luck. Or maybe you could say, well, I should have known to check the weather forecast better and not made that decision. Or I should have known that the Yankees bullpen was going to give up 12 runs over the last 4 innings of the game. The bottom line is the rain delay cost you a bet. Cost you a bet if you had the Yankees. Pineda, he had great stuff, but he could not return. And that smile, look at that smile. It did not last long. Not last long at all. And this, one of a number of games that wasn't real good for the house, Pauly. The syndicates as in general, because to say the syndicates, but the syndicates have been in pretty good form betting MLB since the All-Star break, and that's never good news for the house.
Dodgers bet from $1.55 all the way up to $1.90. Utley returns to Philly for the first time, and it's 2 home runs, including a grand slam.
Sure, and that's certainly not a good result for the house when you see a bunch of money coming on the road favorite, and the road favorite dominates the ballgame. Of course, Philadelphia, at times this year the Phillies have shown signs. At times this year they made their backers money, but this time isn't one of them. And the Dodgers, despite all the injuries, despite all the pitching woes, despite all the problems that team has had this year, they continue to hang around in this NL West race. And with San Fran scuffling, LA's pluckiness has impressed me. I got to say it has.
Yep, 25-cent move on the Duffy and the Royals, and he beats Verlander. Duffy's had a great season.
Sure. Remember early on, we actually highlighted Danny Duffy a fair bit here on SportsBit as he was building up his arm strength, moving from the bullpen to the starting rotation. His first start, I think he only threw about 55 pitches. Then it was up to the 60s. Then it was up to the 80s. And now, obviously, we're talking about a guy who's 10-1 with a 2.73 ERA. And yet, consistently, we haven't seen a lot of market respect for Duffy. There was a ton in yesterday's action, but I think a lot of that's coming in against Detroit with all the injuries the Tigers have suffered.
Yeah.
And Miggy Cabrera, just the latest key Detroit bat to go down.
And another huge move on the Rays, a 40-cent move. They go off $1.90. Bad team, but again, no problem with the Padres again.
Oh boy, the Padres having a really rough series in Tampa, and it's not often that you see a team that's 20 games under 500 getting bet up to $2 favorites 2 days in a row. That's what's happened with Tampa, and obviously the money for both those games has been right side. The Rays dominating San Diego, at least so far in this series.
Our play of the day, we lost. The Orioles bullpen let us down. I make the same bet because the Orioles have been so great at home. They got beat up when this game was tied, and I thought they would get the W, but we got beat by Mookie Betts again. He hits 2 home runs and drives in all 5 runs.
Yeah, and the Betts' first home run was a monster shot. And it was after Gallardo had just gotten, he was in a bad jam. He couldn't throw strikes. He strikes out David Ortiz on 3 balls that were out of the strike zone, all 3 of them. And he gets Ortiz swinging, and the first pitch to Betts, and Betts goes yard bang. And then, of course, he did it again against, we were just talking up the Orioles bullpen, saying how good Baltimore's bullpen has been, and they're number 3 in all of Major League Baseball in bullpen ERA, and Brad Brack gets lit up. First an Ortiz single, then Betts went yard for the second time in the game. That was bad news for us and bad news for those who followed our play of the day.
I loved our chances when the game was tied. Bad for bettors. The Marlins bet down from a plus $1.30 to pick 'em, and the Astros, a 35-cent move with Keuchel. They got beat at home by the Cardinals.
Yeah, and Houston had the lead in that game. Keuchel fell apart in the fifth and then into the sixth. He got lit up in that contest, and St. Louis continues to make moves as they rally from behind to win each of their last three games on the road in the latter stages. And I like that Cardinals attitude right now. They are refusing to lose. That's certainly a bad result for the bettors. And, of course, when we talk about this Marlins-Cincinnati game, we got to talk about DeSclafani. He's someone who's been another guy who's been a regular, like I say, regular contributor, regular topic of discussion here on SportsBit throughout the hot summer months. He's now allowed 3 earned runs or less in 12 of his 13 starts. The Reds 8-5 with him on the hill, 41-64 when he's not. And it's worth noting, of the 5 games that the Cincinnati has lost with DeSclafani on the hill, 4 of those losses have either been 3-2 or 2-1.
Come on.
And the other one came all the way back at the beginning of the season. They lost 9-8. But it's interesting. If you took him plus a run and a half, 13-0 for DeSclafani. Not a good result, as you mentioned, for the bettors, because it was all Miami money in this one.
Up next, big game breakdown. We start with the Nationals and the Rockies. NFL news in the deep dive as well on SportsBit. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Hey, SportsBit viewers, tune into today's show, MLB Odds Couple Show, Wednesday, August 17th. I told you yesterday, me and Mike Brenner are kind of heating up. We're up double digits in August. Both of us, we had another winning day yesterday. I'm liking a bunch of picks on today's card. I don't know, man. Tune into the show today, Wednesday, August 17th. Anything else to add, Mike Brenner?
Absolutely. We're just clicking on all cylinders. We're going to continue doing it. So after you visit Teddy and Pauly, come on over to our house.
Back on SportsBit, Pauly and Teddy. Time for big game breakdown. Nationals and the Rockies. Nationals $1.60, 10.5 the total. Strasburg against Gray. The key here, which of these two struggling starters can find the form again? Strasburg has already thrown 16 more innings than he did in 2015. Is he wearing down, Teddy? We'll look at the numbers here.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, the first 20 starts of the season, Strasburg basically unhittable. 15-1 with a 2.63 ERA. Now, all of a sudden, the last 2 starts, 0-2 with an ERA of 9. Now, he's only lasted 10 innings of those last 2 starts. He's labored through 191 pitches in those 2 outings, and they weren't even against good lineups. We're talking about the Braves, who are, the worst lineup in baseball, and the Giants, who've been ice cold for weeks. 2 offenses that have been struggling. It's worth noting, Strasburg has relied a lot less on his changeup in August than in previous months. Last year, hitters hit 171 against his changeup. This year, hitters have hit 165 against his changeup, and they struck out 49 times in 85 at-bats. And yet, he's only thrown it about 5% of the time in his last 3 outings. A huge decline from the first 3 months of the season when it was about 14% of his pitches. He's been relying on his slider more here in August, and that has been a less effective pitch for him. I'm not sure that Coors Field in a day game is the best place for Steven Strasburg to regain his previously dominant form.
Well, if Strasburg's tired, then Gray's just pitching on fumes. You look at this graphic, first 19 starts, 8-4 with a 3.85. Last 2 starts, 0-2 with an ERA of 15 and change. Only lasted 8 innings, 193 pitches, 21 base runners. Last start at the Phillies, one of the worst offenses. He was left in to face Ryan Howard with the bases loaded in the 5th on Friday because the bullpen for the Rockies has been so bad. He gave up a grand slam.
Yeah, he sure did. Here's his quote. It's been really frustrating for me. Yeah, it was frustrating for me, too, when I bet on you when you were in Philadelphia last week. Sorry, don't mean to editorialize. It's been really frustrating for me, and I hope these guys around me don't lose confidence in me. I'm going to do everything I can to be that guy again. I just hope they believe I will make it back, because I will. We're not talking about a guy that's coming back from a serious injury. We're not talking about a guy who's coming back from a trip to the minor. We're talking about a guy who's coming back from a couple of bad starts. For him to be that rattled off a couple of bad starts is definitely a concern to me as well, especially facing a potent Nationals offense at Coors Field in a day game. We'll get back to this game when it comes to play of the day time.
What do you think of the Nationals, their chances in October? I mean, even you got Strasburg struggling. Bryce Harper has 1 home run since July 8th, and they still have a great record.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to like in the National League. San Francisco hasn't really gotten it all together. You see all the teams battling for the wild card that haven't really gotten it all together. But let's be real. Chicago is the team to beat, and Washington is the contender. And if you're going to ask me if Joe Madden is going to outcoach or outmanage Dusty Baker in a 7-game playoff series, I mean, that's worth like a game and a half in Chicago's favor.
Yeah.
So I'm not sold. Washington's certainly better now they've gotten Papelbon out of there, or in the process of getting Papelbon out of there. But it's not a team that I'm comfortable saying they're the team to beat, because they're not. They're a contender, not a pretender. They're a contender, but they're not the best. And I worry about their ability. A team that has consistently failed to hit or pitch in October. We saw that with Atlanta for a decade and a half. The teams that don't get it done in October one year aren't necessarily going to get it done October the next year. Look at Pittsburgh as another recent example for a team that hasn't gotten it done when it's mattered the most.
Game number 2, Red Sox and the Orioles, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Red Sox, $1.39 the total, price against Bundy. Red Sox win the opener. Teams are 66 and 52, one game behind Toronto, 68 and 52. But hey, Bundy, a lot of poise, Teddy. He's been great for the Orioles.
Oh, yeah. But, the question with Bundy, he was nervous with that first start at Tampa, and he got knocked out early. Since then, 4-1 with a .184 ERA, 32 strikeouts versus 15 hits and 5 walks. This guy was a number 4 pick in the 2011 draft. He never threw a pitch at AAA on the way up, and we had some concerns. Remember, prior to that first start, we said, I don't know if he's going to be necessarily ready, and he wasn't, but he's been ready ever since. But he's moving up a day with Chris Tillman pushed back to Saturday because Tillman's shoulder has been bothering him. Doesn't look like anything major, just giving him a couple of extra days off. But I do worry about Bundy not going on his normal rest here, especially with the issues that Baltimore's bullpen went through last night. I mean, it was just Brad Brack who came into the game with a .134 ERA. But Boston's hitting better than Baltimore is right now. And that's definitely something you want to pay attention to when it comes to bullpen issues.
So Price is used to the pressure. It's not going to be bothered by this big game here in Baltimore, but he's taking heat from the Boston fans and media, as he should, with that big contract for, quote, underperforming. But, they're only 12 and 13 in his starts, but it should have worked out better, Teddy, when you look at some of these numbers.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you sign a big contract in a major media city, you're going to take abuse. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what you do. You're going to have bad days, bad weeks, bad months, and the media is going to jump on you because you're making a lot of money and you're an easy target. And there are certain cities where the media is built to attack. Boston is one of those cities. That being said, you look at an average major league pitcher. Look at the graphic right here. An average, they're fielding and pitching, 4.18. Adjusted fielding and pitching, 4.18. The Sierra, 4.10. And you look at Price's numbers, he's better. He's well above average in all 3 categories, advanced metrics categories. And the Red Sox lead the league in runs scored. That combination's supposed to bring better than 12 and 13 in his 15 starts. But it is worth noting, he hasn't done particularly well against Baltimore. 0-1 with a 5.54 in his 2 previous starts against the Orioles, and Boston's 0-2 in those ball games. That being said, much like the course of his season, he's been more unlucky than any other factor. Price, 19 strikeouts versus only 10 hits and 2 walks allowed in those games.
So far, so good on this road trip. They're 2-0, and this is only a 2-game series. After this game, they got that weird Thursday day game in Detroit that starts a 4-game series coming up. NFL news, suspensions, injuries, bad news for the Bills, and the play of the day coming up on the deep dive on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com. Hey guys, it's that time of year again, football season. And with that, here's a message from everyone's favorite prick.
If you like Captain American football, there's 50,000 dead presidents on the line in this year's Beat the Prick contest. In case you ain't fucking guessed, I'm the prick. Click on the link below for more info. I'm ready to stomp some ass. This is gonna be my best performance yet. So join today. It's free, you fucking squares.
All right, time for the deep dive. Pauly and Teddy, we'll get to the play of the day in a second. A lot of news in the NFL and college football. Let's start in Buffalo, where it's been an unmitigated disaster the last couple of weeks. Darius out, 4-game suspension for ganja. They already lost Shaq Lawson to at least till week 6. Ragland's out. Manny Lawson suspended for the first game. Ike, who's better known for breaking Geno Smith's jaw, he's out for the season. Mario Williams left to go to the Dolphins. Carlos Williams is suspended. What's going on in Buffalo?
Well, and when you think about all the injuries they've had, and now, take a look at the actual numbers for this defense last year. Rex Ryan, he's a defense guy, right? Well, let's see. The Buffalo Bills defense in 2014. Football Outsiders, these are advanced metric numbers. 2014, before Rex Ryan got there, they were the number 2 defense in the NFL. Last year, in Rex Ryan's first season on the job, they dropped to number 28 in the NFL. That's one of the biggest single season drops in NFL history. And now they're bringing over Ryan's brother, who was a coordinator of one of the worst defenses in the entirety of the history of the NFL last year. So what do we have? Now we have cluster injury problems on the defensive line. And this isn't a long-term concern. Darius is going to miss the first 4 games. He was smoking pot, and he lost like $1 million. He lost $1.5 million of guaranteed money for smoking a joint. Man, that's a really pricey joint. I hope it was good weed, because that's a lot of money to lose. And it's not a season ender. Several of these aren't season enders, but for the first month of the season, this defensive line is going to be, let's just call them, flying at half-mast. They're not going to be anywhere close to what we would think they're going to be. Now, the Bills have brought in a trio of free agent linebackers, veterans, Croy Bierman, Brandon Spikes, David Hawthorne, over the past week to try to patch things together. But at first glance, this defense is really, really dicey. And, look at the statement from Buffalo. I think they're pissed. We are very disappointed Marcel chose to put himself first before his teammates, coaches, and the rest of the organization and fans through his recent actions. From ownership down, we've made it clear his behavior is unacceptable. We'll continue to take the necessary steps to work with him in order that he adheres to the policies set forth by our league. Yeah, $1.5 million forfeited. That's tough. That's tough for Pod. It is. I don't care if you're a pro-Pod guy, an anti-Pod guy, whatever you want to call. That's a significant price for doing something that, hey, if he played for the Broncos, it'd be legal.
That's right. Good point. To LSU, Fournette, ankle injury, big deal or no deal. Huge expectations for LSU as they're expected to contend for the SEC championship.
Yeah, this is really a nothing injury. And you know what would be great? If Leonard Fournette got hurt. And what would be great? I sound like a horrible person. It'd be great for value on LSU because Fournette, I know he's a really good running back. It's not like LSU has no depth at that position. And if Fournette was out, the point spread would move, God knows, 3, 4, 5 points. I don't think they'd miss him one iota. Now, real injuries that matter for LSU, let's see. They lost their starting defensive end, Christian LeCoultre. They lost Isaiah Washington, giving them linebacker depth. And outside linebacker Corey Thompson's going to miss some time with a lower leg injury. So here we're seeing some defensive injuries pile up for LSU. But the Fournette stuff is just a tweak. They're not really expecting him to be out of practice or in a walking boot for very long. And I would anticipate he'll be ready for week 1. But if he isn't, LSU is probably going to offer more value than they might if he plays. I'm not giving. He's again a very good back, but running backs, for as good as they can be, they're not often point spread difference makers, and the backups are often every bit as good as the starters when they get their opportunity.
Yeah, how about the Eagles getting Green Beckham?
Well, it's an interesting play here. For Philadelphia, they know what they're getting. Quote, here's a quote from GM Howie Roseman. Obviously, he's made mistakes. He's a kind-hearted kid, and he has the right intentions. And that if you get a chance to really spend some time with him, you'll see that. He's not a locker room cancer at all. He comes in with opportunity. No promise have been made. We felt comfortable to bring him in here to compete. He's physically gifted. He's 6'5". He's 240. He runs a 4.4. He's got a rare skill set. Now, there's a reason that he's available at this time. He's got to get more consistent. But for us and where we are in development, we thought it was a risk worth taking. I agree with Philadelphia, and I agree with Roseman in that regard. You're getting a potential impact player on the cheap. That being said, I totally understand why Tennessee would give him up, and I also understand what Tennessee needed in Dennis Kelly. You know, they're in desperate need of depth on the offensive line. They already lost Byron Bell. They already lost Jose Mateus, gone for the season. Bell played left tackle, left guard, and right tackle left season. He dislocated his left ankle. You know, Mateus elevated a backup left tackle. He needs knee surgery. So, two guys who they had to replace. You need some depth on that offensive line. This is a team that wants to ground and pound, Paulie. The last thing they need is a flashy tight end. They need big, beefy blockers. And with some of the shenanigans that Beckham Green pulled off, even in their last game in the preseason week 1, where they were looking to have him on a go route and he didn't run the route and basically, you know, let the quarterback chuck it up for grabs, they didn't appreciate that. And I think it was an attitude adjustment for Tennessee as much as anything from Malarkey and the management saying, hey, you don't want to work hard? You don't want to listen to what the coaches have to say? Bye-bye. See the door. It's right over there. So I think it made sense for Tennessee to get rid of Beckham Green, not just to pick up an offensive lineman, but also to send a message to everyone on that roster. You guys better work hard, because last year, not so much.
Scary news here. The Cardinals are getting ready for the Chargers. Bruce Arians rushed to the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be fine. You know, Arians has had a history of health concerns. Said he had some issues, but nothing. They're going to keep him overnight, but nothing that is likely to keep him out of the game this week. And, of course, you know, this is a guy who the players love. The players buy into Arians. Larry Fitzgerald. We got the toughest coach. We have the toughest coach in the business. That being said, when it comes to the game against San Diego, you know, they have joint practice with the Chargers and then the game against San Diego this weekend. And I wonder if this distraction involving Arians is going to help Arizona in any way. San Diego, they got gashed pretty good last week. Arizona doesn't care a whole lot about the preseason. Maybe something to be looking at as we come towards the weekend with the Chargers as short home favorites.
Yes. All right. Thursday and Friday, back to football. We'll get some baseball games in there as well. Friday, there's a huge series. The Boston-Detroit series continues. Also, the Blue Jays are in Cleveland to take on the Indians. Money time, play of the day. Early start. Don't sleep on this one. Betting number 901, 902. Over. Rockies Nationals over 10.5. Good sign for the Nationals. Bryce Harper getting back on track at Coors. Power numbers haven't been there since the break, but he's starting to hit. We just ran through all the problems with Strasburg and Gray. Again, over 901, 902. The Rockies and the Nationals. Thanks for watching. Back tomorrow. Tell your friends. Thursday, Sports Bit with Pauly and Teddy. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.